government. I'm here to talk today about funding failures and school funding issues. There are a lot of issues that are affecting school funding. We look around the school. We used to have a librarian in here. We used to have an animation class, but we don't anymore. But you're probably wondering, what is affecting that? Well, it's school funding. But now that I brought that up, what are the things affecting school funding? Well, I'm happy to explain that today by answering these three main questions. 1, why is school funding decreasing? 2, what are school vouchers? And 3, who are the people behind the decreases of funding? There are a lot of things that are affecting it, first off. A lot more that I can get into in 5 to 12 minutes. But I want to go over some main things that have been affecting it recently. Let's look nationally first. On March 20th, 2025, President Donald Trump signed Executive Order 14242, which defunded and effectively dismantled the Department of Education. This makes it extremely hard for schools to budget things, which is already in and of itself a problem. School budgets need to allocate for teacher salary, for field trips, for extracurriculars, tennis, swim, robotics. All these things are effects in school budgeting, and this does not help that on top of an already struggling economy. All of these factors are some of the main things that are affecting school funding. But on top of that, starting this next school year, we will be hit by school vouchers. Now you're probably wondering now, well, what are school vouchers? Well, I'm happy to explain that to you also. The school voucher program is a program that takes the public school money under its title under Senate Bill 2 here in Texas, and what it will do is it will take the public school funding and throw them into a voucher system that is a lottery. This lottery is a problem because to just apply for the lottery, you have to be enrolled in a private school. Now the problem with that is private schools are private institutions. They can accept or deny your application for whatever reason they deem necessary. It can be anything. And the biggest problem we're seeing with this now is this. Well, now let's look at some data. 75% of school voucher applicants are people who are already enrolled in private school. This means 3/4 of potential lottery winners would be people who can already pay and go to private school without any help from the state. This is a problem because the point of this school voucher program is supposedly to help more people get into private education to where they couldn't in the past, to help more people gain education that they wouldn't have otherwise. Let's look at some further data about private schools. Firstly, the public versus private school enrollment by race. There are a lot more white people enrolled in private schools than there are of people of any other race. And this is very similar to another statistic, the mean wealth by racial group. This shows the unfortunate disparity in America between white people and people of any other race in both wealth and ability to get different types of education. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if school vouchers were being implemented properly. However, like we see here, 75% of the people applying for school vouchers are already enrolled, meaning that most of the people who would be getting these vouchers are disproportionately white compared to people of any other race here in America, especially in Texas. But now I want to turn our focus to religious private schools. Religious private schools here in Texas make up 71% of the total total private schools here in the state. However, these 71% hold 82% of the private school student body. This is a problem because all of the public tax dollars going towards schooling would go to this group, which is all private schools, which are 5% of the student body of Texas. This means 100% of state funding towards schooling would go to only 5% of students in Texas, and 80% of funding would go to religious private schools who fall under the same tax exemption that the churches have, 501c3, meaning public tax dollars would be going to these religious private schools who don't have to pay taxes. This obviously brings up concerns not only about, what do the other 95% of students do in Texas who aren't getting this funding, but also brings in the question of church and state. If 80% of our tax dollars that should be going to all of the students are instead going to private schools who don't have to pay taxes, doesn't that bring a problem for church and state? Now, this is all an issue overall, and I'm sure one of the big questions you're probably wondering is who is behind these issues? I'll have it explain. To go back into my first point,
Free time.
okay. Okay, so this brings into the question, who is behind the decreases in funding? Well, let's first go back to my first point. On March 20th, 2025, as I stated, Donald Trump signed Executive Order 14242, which states, this year's National Assessment of Educational Progress showed that 70% of 8th graders were below proficient in reading and 72% were below proficient in math. Now, this would concern you without any other background context. However, the NAEP website directly states that compared to the results of 1992, the first assessment that they took like this, there's almost no difference. Meaning they're defunding the Department of Education based on this statistic, but the statistic is pretty much no different compared to whenever they started this test. And even if it was different, what's the point of defunding the one thing that's making some students at least, smarter? If it was getting lower, the best way to fix it would be to give more funding to the schools. Now, let's look more locally at a map of here in Bell County. In Bell County, we are controlled by House District 54 and 55, which are controlled by Representatives Brad Buckley and Hillary Hicklin, respectively. Now, I'm going to focus here on Brad Buckley. He's our big guy here. He is a co-signer of Senate Bill 2, which is the bill that's putting school vouchers into implementation next year. However, Brad Buckley did not work alone. His co-signer of this bill was Brandon Creighton, and even then, there's more to it. Billionaires Tim Dunn and Dan and Ferris Wilks all helped fund this endeavor, which will defund public schools here in Texas and give the money to the private schools, like I stated before. Now, it all looks bleak, but I'm here to give you some advice. Not everything is as bleak as it seems. It sure looks bad, but there are things you can do. Everyone here can do something. There are 3 main things you can do. Protesting. Protesting has shown that it has positive effects whenever people go out and show their voice. Researching politicians. Politicians and researching them is a great way to help support things like school education, and finding ones that you can support that will help protect education and other similar endeavors is a very good way to support the world. But lastly, the most important thing of all is voting. Voting is a constitutional right that every single citizen of America has. And it is one of the most important rights you have because it allows you to democratically share your voice over the whole country, over the whole state, over your city. It is one of the most important things you can do as a citizen of the United States. Democracy is the only system that persists in asking the powers that be whether they are the powers that ought to be. Sidney J. Harris, journalist, Chicago Daily News and Chicago Sun-Times. Thank you.